Hi, my name is Jessica Schwartz, and this is my final reflection video for MISI 427, Management of Information Systems. So a little bit about me. I'm from Baltimore. I'm a junior information systems major here at UD, and what that is 2/3 computer science classes, so it's mostly technical, but then there's also the 1/3 of business. And so why I chose this major is because I originally was straight computer science, but I really wanted to have that little bit of business perspective mixed in, so I'm not just one of those coders sitting at a desk all day and not knowing how to talk to anyone. I wanted to still be able to keep a communication with other parts of IT and other parts of the business. Last summer, I interned at Under Armour's headquarters in Baltimore, Maryland, and I worked on their global information and cybersecurity team. And this course actually heavily related to a lot of the things I did in my internship last summer. And I'm interning there again this summer. I start the week after finals, so I'm really excited to see what I'm able to bring new to my internship this summer after taking this and other business courses. So to start, I first want to talk about Chapter 1 of the book, Adventures of an IT Leader. In Chapter 1 of Adventures of an IT Leader, we learn that Barton will be the new head of the IT team as the CIO, and before he was the COO. And they chose this because sales had leveled off and they just needed to change to get them to that next level, to get IVK. And so to do this, they decided that they needed new management. Not only Barton got a new job, but they also got a new interim CEO, and they just made some change in the employees. And they chose Barton because he was vocal in identifying problems at IT meetings. And although to some people this may seem like a bad thing, like you just want to agree with what everyone's saying, he actually voiced that he thought there needed to be a change, and so they realized that in him and asked him to step up and make that change. And I chose this topic because it was the basis for the rest of the book and our learning in the class. So this is kind of where we all started at and then slowly learned the problems that IVK encountered from here. And I just think it's an interesting topic because I was able to relate it back to my internship last summer at Under Armour a lot. So while I was there last summer, Under Armour went through the exact same change. So they had noticed that their stock had dropped a lot and their sales were kind of leveling off and not growing as much as they used to have been. And so they needed change. So they didn't get a new CIO. Their CIO's name was TJ, and he is still the CIO of Under Armour, but what changed was who reports to him. So one example that I'm able to provide is that because I was on the cybersecurity team, I kind of know more about their management than other teams. But I know that cybersecurity used to have to report up a long chain of people all the way up to the CIO, but with this new change, the head of the cybersecurity department now reports directly to TJ. And so there were a bunch of little structural changes like this that Under Armour believed at the time will help them make the sales, and today I'm able to say that it is working, and all of these little changes throughout the company did make a difference for the better. And another change that Under Armour went through that is just like in the book is that they went through eliminating some employees. So they actually eliminated exactly 2% of their workforce, and all of them was from corporate buildings, so it wasn't any of the people in retail. And they did this because for the same reason that their sales were leveling off, so they needed to save money. So they fired a lot of their upper-level VP people, one of them being my dad. My dad actually used to work for Under Armour. He was the VP of Global Compliance and Risk Management, and they let him go because they decided they would save money by outsourcing this position. And we learned now that they made the right decision, but at the time, it was very surprising to the employees, and it did make a big cultural change as it did at IVK. A lot of the employees were questioning these decisions and not understanding why it's happening, and that's exactly what happened to Under Armour. And the CEO of Under Armour's name is Kevin Plank. And here's a picture of him right here. He came to talk to all the interns, and he kind of told us about this restructuring and his ideas behind it, because he didn't want us to think we were entering Under Armour at a bad time. He just wanted us to understand that they're in a time of change, and yes, people are getting fired, but new people are coming on. And he made sure that all the interns were very comfortable with this, so I think that's a very good management style. Now today, little side note, my dad's fine. New job, and it's all great. But at the time, it was very confusing. And I actually have a picture from the internship last summer. So us as interns were very lucky with this internship where we got to meet a lot of the VPs of Under Armour and talk to them and learn from their experiences. And one of them that didn't get fired and that stuck around, her name was Carrie. I'm going to try to zoom it in. She's the one in the middle with the blue shirt and the coffee. And then this is all of us interns with her that summer. And we got to talk to people like her, and she kind of reminds me of the role that Barton plays in the book, where although, yes, a lot of VPs were fired and replaced or outsourced, she was one that stayed because Under Armour believed that her role was essential in making Under Armour great, and even if where she was at that time isn't important, they actually decided to move her to the VP of a different department, but kept her in the business, and that just reminds me a lot of what happened to Barton. And so now that I told you a little bit about why I chose to talk about Chapter 1 and how I can relate it to me, I'm going to talk about my topic number 2, which is about later in the book. So now what I want to talk about is the DOS attack and how IVK handled it. Specifically figured out later in the book that it was a DOS attack, which is a denial of service attack, and there was a lot of question on how IVK should secure itself in the aftermath of the security incident. So what happened was Barton was put in a very difficult situation because the IT disaster of the DOS attack, it struck just hours before he had to give a big presentation in an analyst meeting. So both the public-facing site and the customer service site of IVK were down, and that's why they decided it was a denial of service attack, so some outside attacker was blocking all of their service and access to the websites. So in the book, Barton had to choose how to respond, and he either had to say something or keep quiet at the meeting and decide how he was going to go about doing that. And then Barton presented senior leadership members of IVK after the meeting, and he had to decide if, as a group, if they wanted to do full disclosure, partial disclosure to the public and the people that were affected, or none at all. So, to clarify, full disclosure was to the whole public, partial disclosure would just be to the people who were affected, and then none at all would obviously just be keeping quiet and hoping it would go away. So I chose this section of the book because I found it very interesting that it has to do a lot with cybersecurity, and that's kind of what I want to focus on in the future. So I just thought it related to me a lot, and I thought it was interesting because I never really realized before that there was so much pre-planning that went into preparation for an attack. Even just because IVK is a very small corporation with very little focus on IT, I think that's why they didn't have any plans ahead of time. But whether I work at a small corporation or a large one, it has been brought to my attention that there needs to be plans put in place for the event of a breach, a security breach. And with a plan in place, these questions that Barton had to think about wouldn't have to be a question. Someone will have already thought about this and written out a plan in a policy or a procedure. And whoever's working at the company at that time, even if that person's gone and fired, can go back, look at the steps that were written out, and follow them in the event of a breach. So there won't be any of this confusion or, commotion happening in the company. So how I can relate this to myself in the future is that as I try to pursue a career in IT, and specifically in privacy and compliance within cybersecurity, I have to learn from IVK's mistake and make sure that my company has a plan set in the case of a customer information breach. And so I know that all companies hold some type of sensitive data, whether it's just internal data that they don't want leaked to the public, or consumer information like credit card numbers and social security numbers and all of that type of information. No matter what, all companies that have any information online has to have a cybersecurity team to keep this safe. And so I will try to ensure that someone on the IT team that I'm working with, whether it's me or someone else, is prepared with a plan so if a breach does happen in the future, where I'm working, we won't have to discuss what to do. We'll know to put the plan in place. So now that I told you about the first book that talked about the cybersecurity breach, I'm finally going to talk about a tech talk. So this one was actually just 2 weeks ago or so, and it was the one about the glasses that was an update of the Google Glass. It's not by Google. I can't remember right now who it's by, but it was another company that basically made a better version of the Google glasses. So what these are is they're just look like normal eyeglasses that you would see any guy wearing on the street, and you'd have no idea that these are actually the smart glasses. So they updated this from Google by emphasizing that they look like everyday glasses and you won't have a big chunky black piece of computer sitting on your face all day. And I chose this topic because I think that it will be very relevant to not only my future, but all of our futures. I just honestly think it's cool that there's already, like, I've seen things like this in movies and in TV shows like Black Mirror on Netflix. There's actually an episode where it's optional, but people can get surgeries to have a robotic eyes put in. I don't know if you get your eyes taken out or you get something implanted into your eyes, but either way, you basically have this Google Glass type of technology in your eyes permanently, and you just can turn it on and off by looking around. And you can just see notifications. You can see when someone texts you. You can look something up on the web, but it just looks like you're looking into space. And so how I can relate this to my life is that I know that one day in the future this will be, I feel like it will be a widely adopted type of technology. Even though today not everyone's jumping for this pair of glasses, I feel like in the future people will slowly start to catch on, almost like how smartphones or Apple Watches slowly caught on. I think that it will happen like that. And so I just think it's important to learn about the technology of these glasses now, so in the future we're prepared and we're also able to learn from this. So if we learn what people like and what people don't like of these Google glasses, and in the future they're able to evolve them and make new versions of them that people do want, and one day maybe everyone will be wearing these glasses.